Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome back to BuildAbility. I'm so excited to continue our learning and exploring this world. There is so many cool features of this world that we can't wait to show you a little bit more. So again, this is the next steps. Last time you spent some time exploring the world and the different barriers, and this time we're going to dive a little deeper into some of the additional things that BuildAbility has to offer. My name is Emma Cottier. I'm from Victoria, British Columbia. I'm a middle school teacher and, of course, very passionate about technology.
And I'm Dan Noble. I'm in Waterloo, Ontario, Treaty 9, and I'm a global Minecraft mentor and Minecraft consultant. So my day is basically Minecraft all the time.
Yeah, and Dan has the coolest job. And if you haven't experienced Dan before or seen Dan build, students, you are in for a real treat. I always love being connected to Dan because he always blows my mind with his builds today. And you are going to have a little bit of a build challenge today. So stay tuned for details about that. But before we get started, it is very likely you are participating in learning from or near the traditional territory land of one of the many Indigenous groups across Canada. I'd like to acknowledge I am on the traditional land of the West Saanich people. It means the saltwater people. It's a beautiful coastal land on southern Vancouver Island, and which I'm so thankful to be able to teach, learn, and explore and share my passion of technology with you. So Haishka in the local Senchothan language here. A huge thank you to Microsoft. How cool is it to be a global partner and to be here doing these sessions? So just a big thank you to Microsoft for supporting and allowing us to share these incredible Minecraft worlds with you. Our plan today. So last time in BuildAbility, you were able to check out 5 types of accessibility barriers. We are going to explore, and there's a few different areas to explore in here, but today in particular, we're going to do a little tour of the shopping center today and looking at some of those accessibility challenges. This is developed through collaboration with the Peel District School Board. And we are going to maybe start thinking about a solution to some of these barriers, because the goal is to make our world as inclusive as possible, and recognizing that some individuals have challenges that we will take into consideration, because we want all people to feel welcome and included and be able to participate fully in all aspects of our communities. Now, before we jump into this world, we like to interact with you, because remember, we can't see or hear you, but you can see and hear us. So in a new tab, the cc.page/ability, that's a form. You'll be able to interact with us. Maybe you'd like a shout out again. Maybe you want to tell us about your build today. Maybe you want to share a new piece of learning, because I know I have so many takeaways from exploring BuildAbility, and I know Dan too, and we're constantly learning through these Minecraft worlds, and this one, it is just near and dear to my heart. I absolutely love it. So in a new form, let us know. And because Dan, I know Dan's been doing even more BuildAbility than me, I'm going to put him on the spot. Is there something in particular that you just love about this BuildAbility world, Dan?
Yeah, it's really well developed. And on the accessibility subject, there's more than just 5. And if you look closely at some of the areas that they've built, they've actually snuck in other ones. So it's pretty cool how they're addressing 5, but they've also actually added a few in here or there.
Ooh, that's good to know, Dan. I do find that with Minecraft worlds that there's always little things. If you're very observant, you can pick up on little cues. They are very methodical, I'd say, in their builds, and they really think it through. So always be looking around, practicing those movements so that you pick up on those little things. But Dan, I know we have a Josh joining us today, and a Monet, a Jared, a Samantha. So welcome. Thank you for joining our BuildAbility today. Keep using that form so that you can interact with us. You can ask us questions. You might even be able to maybe put in a request for Dan for a build, thinking about the solutions. But I know Dan is always brewing some ideas for his accessibility. Now, thinking of the different, accessibility barriers we've learned about in buildability, or maybe you've been observant like Dan and noticed a few other little things. Can you name and tell us about or explain one of the accessibility barriers we learned about last time? So, building off our last buildability lesson, can you name one of them? Let us know in the form. And I know, because Dan's been in this world, I don't want to say, do you have a favorite accessibility? Because it's not about having like a favorite, it's about learning from one. But Dan, is there one of those barriers that you explore, one of the five that really kind of like sticks out in your mind a little bit?
Yeah, it depends on the day. I'm going to go with the technological one today.
Ooh, and so is that in regards to it can be a few different things, but making sure everyone has access to technology, but also have access to technology that works for them. Maybe it's technology that can read us out web pages. Maybe it's an easier way, or not even easier, but different ways of login. Or maybe there's, things on the keyboard that can help people to navigate, if there's eyesight. That's a really good thing to keep in mind, especially with us, Dan, because we work with technology all
Mhm.
the time. One of the barriers that kind of stands out to me is the organizational barrier, and just how we kind of conduct meetings in our everyday life to make sure those can be included. Maybe it's offering information in different ways. Maybe it's conducting a meeting that's both virtual and in person, because it doesn't have to be one or the other. There's ways of doing both. So keep it going. We do have, I think it's Ariva. I hope I'm saying that right. Reva, thank you for joining. Please let us know one of the barriers that you have discovered last time that you learned about. And should I give some away, Dan? Should we get like review and go over them?
Yeah,
All right. So just to like refresh our memories from last week, there's attitudinal barriers, which is, your mental, your thinking approach to different things. There's that organizational, which is also called systemic. There is architectural and physical, information and communication, and there's technology. So these are just five. Remember, Dan said these are five. There are more, but these are the five that the BuildAbility Minecraft EDU world shows us. So Dan, do you want to just quickly show us what those look like again in the world?
absolutely.
All
All
right.
right,
So,
here we are. So these are the attitudinal barriers. And so there are things that people do, say, or think that discriminate against persons with disabilities. These barriers often come from not understanding and can lead people to ignore, judge, or misunderstand a person with a disability. And not all disabilities are ones that we can see. So that's where this piece comes in.
no, thank you for that, Dan.
All right, so let's move on to the next one here. So information or communication barriers happen when people with disabilities that affect hearing, speaking, reading, writing, understanding, and use different ways to communicate. So written messages that prevent persons with visual impairments from receiving the message, e.g. small print or no braille. And I mean, I certainly, my vision is not as good as it used to be, and continues as I get older to get a little bit worse. In my daily life, before I became a Minecraft consultant, I had to deal with a lot of different devices, which meant looking at serial numbers sometimes to look at warranty. And a lot of serial numbers these days are very, very small, and they're very, very dark, and they're usually on printed on a material that is also dark. So I would often have to get out my phone, and even blowing that up as big as I could get it, like the print was so bad that you couldn't even necessarily always see it on the phone. So that's not terribly accessible. So organizational and systemic barriers are rules that groups or individuals enforce that discriminate against persons with disabilities. So these barriers can stop people from being able to participate in situations. So like we were talking before, I mean, particularly during this pandemic, we've had a lot of virtual meetings, which have been very, very accessible. But coming out of it, there are some times where people are requiring us to come back to in-person meetings. And I've been involved in that lately, where I've been asked to attend an in-person meeting, and it just wasn't an accessible or a good situation to get into, and they weren't offering a virtual one, so I had to really argue that up with other people also, that were like, no, we need to keep a virtual side of this, and also provide some technological stuff there so the meeting actually works well.
No, those are really good points, Dan. And I think one of the takeaways is it's okay to challenge ideas. It's okay to present solutions and offer a different way of doing something.
Yeah. So architectural or physical barriers, these are the ones that we often think about when we talk about accessibility challenges. So they happen when a space is built or set up that gets in the way of persons with disabilities from being able to fully use the space or building. And we saw that with the school last week, and we're going to see that again with the shopping center today. And the last one here, technological barriers happen when technology or devices can't be used by the people who are supposed to use them. Sometimes this is because the technology can't be used with an assistive device, and these barriers are often related to information and communication barriers. So one of the examples they use here are websites that don't allow people to use reader software or can only work through mouse clicks. And it's also the aesthetics or the way that they've set up the website. And I've encountered this as well more recently, where I've gone to a website and it's a white background with light gray whiting. And they've chosen that purely for aesthetic or decorative purposes, but it means that people with some vision impairment aren't going to be able to read that going on into it.
No, all really good things to keep in mind, Dan. And sometimes it's just different things to consider. Sometimes we just don't realize some of these barriers exist. So BuildAbility is helping bring these to our attention so we can have these considerations when we're doing our day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Dan, thank you for taking us on and refreshing our mind with those different barriers. And remember, with BuildAbility, they are featuring 5, but we want to remember that there is more out there. There's more than just 5. And this is a great way, like I said, to initiate that thinking and taking into consideration some of the barriers that, our loved ones, our friends, our community members, maybe our peers at school can be encountering on a day-to-day basis. Now, remember, we loaded BuildAbility last time, and you were able to go in. You might have a saved world, and we're going to encourage you to load that back up. But if you didn't join us last time, that's okay. You can load up a new world, and Dan's going to show us a way to maybe skip that initial stage if you've already done it. So, Dan, do you want to go ahead and show us that?
Sure. All right. So I'm going to go into New and Featured, and you can get BuildAbility here, or you can go the long way. If it doesn't show up there, you can go into View Library, Subject Kits, Social and Emotional, and BuildAbility. I'm just going to click on Create World here, and it's going to pop up.
And maybe we'll just remind teachers, this might be a great time to pause this video, make sure your students are all set up. Dan is, again, going to show you how you can skip the introduction if you've already done it. But teachers, this might be a great time to just pause this video and make sure all your students are able to either load their world from the last BuildAbility session or load a new one.
All right, so when we jump in here, we do have to click Touch, Controls, or Keyboard. So I'm going to click Keyboard. And if you turn around, there's a robot there. You can click on that and click Yes, Skip, and Yes, Skip again, and it will drop you off into the atrium with the camera and the portfolio in your hotbar ready to use.
Ooh, thanks for showing that again. So students, teachers, if last time you joined us, you already practiced your movement and the accessibility of getting in that introduction into the atrium, just know that you can go ahead and skip it. So now, Dan, there is so many cool worlds in there. There's the school, there's a shopping mall, there's a couple other. Dan's going to take us on a tour of the shopping mall and interacting with those NPC characters so we can continue to learn about these accessibility barriers. Dan, can you show us around the shopping mall?
I sure can. Okay, so when we come into the atrium here, there are separate areas for each. So we have, keeping in line with that accessibility, they have actually color-coded all these alcoves here, and they also have different setups and textures so that you can pick them out. So we are going into the magenta one with this sort of mall-looking kiosk area. And it's the first to the left when you come in the atrium. So once you get over here, you can come up to the gold block and click the button, and it will take you off to the shopping center. Now, when we get in here, we have a guide. So if you want to reach specific areas and you're having trouble finding them, you can click on the button like here, like escalator. And if you look at the ground by the robot, you can see a little glowing path, and it will take you to the escalator. So I'm just going to start exploring the mall now, and I'm going to take pictures and take some notes in my portfolio as I go through. You'll note that the NPCs that you can interact with have a little glowing arrow bouncing up and down above them. But there are other things in here that are accessibility challenges or issues related, so feel free to take pictures of those too and take notes.
So students, as Dan is showing around, I do want to give a shout out. We have a Luca, a Julia, a Darren, a Jaden. We are taking some time to explore the shopping mall. You can see Dan is taking some pictures. He's documenting in his portfolio, taking note of those accessibility because they're going to hopefully inspire some ideas to build a possible solution. So students, you can be exploring now or checking out Dan as he explores. All right, so students, this is about a 5-minute warning to finish up your exploration of the mall, the shopping center. I know Dan has found many different accessibility barriers and has done a really good job of documenting them. So maybe in a few minutes, we'll get Dan to share a few items in his portfolio that I can see that he's captured with his camera. So again, just a few-minute warning, and we can talk about some of the barriers that we found in the shopping center. All right, students, this is your final minute reminder of exploring the shopping center. Shout out for Chase, Matt, and Peyton. I know you have enjoyed touring around. You have spotted many different accessibility barriers, and I'm excited for Dan to share some of his findings, and I know he has quite a few. All right, Dan, are you ready to share some of your findings?
I am.
Some accessibility findings from the shopping center. And remember, students and
Mm-hmm.
teachers, there are more worlds to explore. This is just one of them. So just know that if you have enjoyed exploring these accessibility barriers, I think there's 3 more. There's 4 altogether, 4 areas that you can explore. So Dan, can you share some of your accessibility that you found
Sure. I'll just
in the
open
shopping
up my
center?
portfolio here. So let's go back to the beginning. So the first thing I encountered was the non-working escalator. Additionally, it is the only access to the second level. So there's no staircases, there's no elevators, there's just the escalator. And I mean, that's one thing that I've noted. A lot of people are not comfortable using escalators to begin with. They can be, especially for small children, they can be very terrifying. So having only one option there that's not even accessible isn't such a great choice. Then we have non-accessible toilets. All of the washrooms in this building are non-accessible. In terms of, we have another NPC here who is complaining they use their phone to translate for them to read signs and so forth. And there's no Wi-Fi in the mall. And what I've actually personally encountered is there may be Wi-Fi, but particularly with people that are of a technical background, we're not necessarily always comfortable using public Wi-Fi because we know a lot of it is not always necessarily really well secured. So I would prefer to use just the regular data off my phone, but there's a lot of buildings that I refer to as a new term for you today called a Faraday cage. So it's a building that has issues allowing communication in and out of it. So I've been into a lot of buildings lately where you walk in and you may be able to get the Wi-Fi, but you can't actually get your regular cell signal once you walk in those doors. Like as soon as those doors close, you're cut off from the rest of the universe. So however those structures are built or whatever they're using to build them, it's not very friendly for electromagnetic signals. And then we had another one where we had some high shelves, and I noticed there's also really poor lighting in there too.
Yeah, these are really great observations, Dan. And like I said, we don't always think about these challenges, but I notice even since becoming mom, I have a 2-year-old human and things that I didn't even consider before, like the escalators, like a little human may not want to do that. So we have to look for other routes. We have to look for other solutions. My little human might also want to help me grocery shop. And if things are on upper shelves, that's a barrier even to them to help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've noticed a new thing every time that I've come into the shopping center. So I noticed that a lot of the shops, they have things in them, so they're obviously functioning stores, but they're not open. So they're not open, I guess, at the regular time that this shopping center is open. So that's not really convenient for everybody if you've come all that way to come in here and you get there and then you have to wait for the store to open. And there's not even any seating in that area where you could sit and wait for the store to open. Another store I found that there were shelves that were all way bunched too close together, so you couldn't get through them with a walker or a cane or a wheelchair or there's many issues with these shelves being way too close together.
But not only that, it makes it hard, even someone with accessibility, and then there's another person in the aisle, you don't even have access to the merchandise you would like to purchase because with just one person in the aisle, that's and a whole nother layer of accessibility on there.
Yeah. We have sensory sensitivity and strong smells, and I have issues with this one myself. A lot of the issues actually I find connecting with because I don't like malls for all these reasons. Because you go into them and a lot of them have these challenges, and I notice they tend to cluster all the smell stores, like the fragrance stores, all together. And I mean, I find it very overpowering, and I have a little bit of a reaction to it. So you have to, hold your breath and then run the gauntlet through those stores. Or even some stores are designed, they force you to go through, like if you go into a Shoppers or something like that, when you walk into it, the very first section you go into is the perfume and cologne section, and you can't bypass it. You have to go through that before you can get to the rest of the store. So for those of us that have those sensory sensitivity issues, all I want is a bottle of aspirin, but I've got to walk through that gauntlet before I can get my aspirin. That's not an accessible thing. So no self-service ordering. This NPC had issues where they wanted to just order from a computer, and there was no such option there. And we're starting to see that a lot more these days. And I also noticed in the food court area, there are no accessible seating areas. It's all cramped spaces. Everything's just jammed in. And certainly I've noticed that with a lot of food courts that I've gone into over the years. They're not designed as open spaces. They're designed to pack as many people into a small space as possible. So there's a lot of issues with that. It's not safe. There's no accessibility there. You have to try to navigate through all of these chairs and things.
And that creates sensory issues as
Oh
well.
yeah,
It's twofold.
it's overwhelming sometimes. No textured flooring. So we have someone with a vision impairment, and vision impairments can be, there's a range of them. There's blindness and color blindness, and even just not being able to focus properly, cataract. There's all sorts of different ones. So having some textured flooring in this space would be a huge benefit for this character here, in being able to be independent and walk through this area on their own. And we have an NPC that was having issues. So there was no quiet sort of places where you can get away from all the noise and the brightness and just sit down for a bit and decompress. And most malls have a lot of hard spaces. So I find that because they have all those hard surfaces, all those sound waves are bouncing off everything, and it just creates this overwhelming noise. There's no materials in there that can dampen that and reduce that noise level. So we also had a crowded, busy store. So the character here was feeling a little overwhelmed having to go in here. And we also had insufficient seating in convenient areas, which I mentioned before as well. So our character here has fibromyalgia, and they need to take frequent rests. And this mall does not have seating anywhere where you can do that. I think those were the last two.
Dan, thank you for sharing those. You have spotted many accessibility barriers, given us lots of things to think about. And I even just think that textured flooring, because if all the floorings are the same, it would be really hard to differentiate, like what would be a decoration and what would be a pathway, or making sure that those who may be seated, that you're respecting their space as well, so you are aware of where to walk. I want to give a shout out to Olivia, Sophia, Sadin, and Ben. They were able to spot a number of the accessibility barriers too. They as well noticed, the really confined areas and not being able to get into certain stores. So stores having unique hours with maybe not communicating it can be very frustrating for some people. So just recapping, we did go through the shopping center. And we do encourage you of the saving the world, but we've gone over the accessibility barriers that Dan has gone through. If you notice some more and you want to let us know in the forum. And Dan, that was a really good observation about getting to the level of the mall, because that's the reality, is some individuals maybe only get to some portions of the mall. because of the different floors. Or I notice malls are just so huge that even the distance between stores can be an accessibility piece as well. And having even parking close to all areas of the mall so that you can maybe be accessible to all that it has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
So just reminding you, the NPCs, we had Anthony, we had Dominique, Ugochi, Sanjay, Sarah, Garrett, Estevo. They all pointed out different things to think about. We did meet Sarah. Doing a lot of walking can be difficult. So thinking what a solution could be. So this is where we want you to start brainstorming. What is something that we could do to help Zara out when there's a lot of walking? So keep that in mind. Let us know in the form. We also now will start into a build challenge. And Dan, are you ready to start building today?
I am.
All right. So now this is your challenge today. It's called Building in the Sandbox, and it's using what you know about accessibility barriers, build a new shopping center or an area or a portion or even a feature, it doesn't have to be a whole mall, that overcomes an accessibility barrier. So think back to Dan's portfolio or your own observations, and what is something that we can do or build to help one of these NPC characters that we met today. So Dan, do you have like something in mind for a build already?
I do.
All right.
All right, so you're looking for this red and blue robot in the mall. You can find them in a couple of places, but the one I think that's most obvious is in the food court. So I'm at the back of the food court here. So I'm going to click on that robot and go to the build plot. So the build plot, we actually have all the NPCs that we encountered earlier in the shopping center. So you can come up and you can click on them and you can see the challenges that they were facing. We are in creative mode in the build plot. So you can fly around, and they actually have already built a couple of the parts of the mall here. So you can adapt these or change these to add some new features in here. So I'm going to start off here. One thing I will note about this area in this world is that commands have been disabled. So if you're looking to use command blocks and some advanced features like that, you're not going to be able to do them here. What I would recommend if you're going to do that is to jump out and jump into a blocks of grass world or something like that. Build in there if you're planning to use some advanced features like that. Or some other items like structure blocks or various things of that nature. So I'm going to start in here, and actually what I'll do closer to the end is maybe jump out and jump into another world where I've already built some more advanced accessibility features, and I can show you how I constructed them. I'll get started here, and as it is creative mode, we do have access to all of our inventory here.
So Dan, tell us, maybe I do see that you're making changes, but we'd love to know some of your thoughts. Like, let us know how you're making this just a better space.
So the first thing that I'm doing is, and again, it's one of those things in Minecraft where we may not have a specific block type that we would want to use in the real world. So I'm using something as a stand-in instead. So I'm using wool, and I'm using it basically as a sound absorbing material.
Oh,
So
I like that.
yeah,
So reducing, because food courts are a very chaotic place. It can be hard even just getting your food and then finding a table and then the loudness and the crowdedness. So that's a great idea, Dan, is have a way to hopefully reduce the noise volume for those enjoying their food.
Yeah, exactly.
And I noticed you removed some of the seating. Is that a little hint of something to come?
Yeah, so I've added spaces here. So if you had a wheelchair, so you have some accessible seating here, or you could bring in like a high chair, or various. It's an adaptable seating area as opposed to one that has just all benches. Um, and additionally, I've added some more here, and it also helps open up the space. So if they're not being used as accessible spaces at that time, it's just more open.
Really great thoughts. And I do want to give a shout out to Kiera and Mr. Walsh's 6-7 class. There is your shout out. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions or accessibility features you want to share, or maybe something to consider, because Dan is giving this food court a little facelift with some accessibility to, again, make it a great place that everyone can enjoy. All right, Dan, that is really. Can you tell us about that material that you just picked, that you just so subtly snuck into your inventory there? What is it that you just added?
So this is a lab table and this is a material reducer. So they're actually meant for the chemistry mob, but frequently if I'm working on a world where I don't have the time or the opportunity to reskin blocks and build my own resource pack, I'll actually use these as stand-in blocks for computer-like equipment. So this would be my automated kiosk for ordering through a computer system because they look kind of computery.
I love that. And I've encountered that accessibility there. I love to travel and travel the world, and I do my best to learn different languages. But sometimes it's just not there. And sometimes I'd like to order food. And I know in some places I just want to grab a quick bite to eat. It's been so helpful to have that machine. So I can not only translate the menu, but I can order exactly what I'd like, submit payment, and it just makes for a lot smoother of a transaction where you don't feel like you're interfering, or maybe being embarrassed trying to do the language and communicate. So those are really helpful. And Dan, is that the textured pathway by chance that you were building?
It is.
Very, very helpful, because this also prevents people, from maybe accidentally bumping into other people, and just making sure people are traveling in a direction that's effective and getting them in place, because it's also can be really time consuming for people to navigate without the proper pathways.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, and I wanted to add one that was on not only a different texture, but a different color as well. So if you have a dark path, or maybe it could be a brightly colored path, just something that distinguishes it from the rest of the floor.
Yeah, high contrast is really important.
Mm-hmm. Maybe some railings here just to guide people into the ordering spaces. And I'm actually going to add some note blocks in here. It's just another element. Add some pressure plates. Something kind of brightly colored here. So the idea here is when they walk over these note blocks, they'll activate them so it's a slightly different texture than the one that they've been walking on, so they'll know that they're near a kiosk that they can turn into an order from, and there'll be also an audio cue.
Oh, I like that. Not only that, but it also is a great way just of communicating, who might be next in line, like whose turn
Mm-hmm.
to be. Just even those little things create for a much smoother flow of people in really high traffic areas.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna walk over here quickly and see what this space is about. Yeah, there's not enough room in here, so we're gonna knock down some of the shelves here, make it a little bit more accessible.
I did notice in my, early human days having a stroller, it was really hard to move around in some stores. And things that I have to confess I didn't really think about before having a baby. But it's really hard to move around a stroller, and I didn't even have that big of one in different stores. So there's some stores I just wasn't able to go to.
No, exactly. And I was with my daughter for 8 months. I took 8 months parental leave, and frequently when I was in malls or wherever and I'd need to change her, it wasn't an option because I would go into the men's bathroom and there was no diaper changing facilities in there. So it was an immediate roadblock. I would have to figure something out on the fly.
Yeah, good point. I did notice in the mall as well, and maybe Danny, you can correct me, but I didn't see a universal bathroom or like a family room. It was very much gender orientated. So I think that's a barrier as well.
Hmm. That's
Um,
right. Now that you brought that up, I just recognized that as well.
And I do love how some malls are creating those family orientated rooms or universal rooms so that if you would just like to have more privacy when you're going to the washroom, or maybe you need to change, or, maybe you have a small family and you need to have someone else with you. My dad has some accessibility challenges, so I may have to go in, assist my dad. And that's a barrier for me because I can't go into a male washroom.
Hmm.
So having those washrooms where I can, be accessible to my dad is really helpful.
Yeah. All right. So let's see here. So I've added some additional seating here, and one thing I always note about the seating is that, especially at different times of the year, like during the holidays and whatnot, people pile their shopping. It's the same thing with airports. People pile up their shopping on the seats, so they take away seats that people could be sitting in. So I'm just going to add some quick shelves here so that you could put your shopping on here while you're sitting at the seating, rather than taking up, needed seating with shopping bags.
I like your thinking. Or I think of food courts if they had little shelving under
Yeah.
where you could just, safely tuck your things away so it's off the floor and you could just tuck it right under your seat. It'll be nice and safe. And that frees up those passageways as well, because we wouldn't want to leave something down that could trip someone or
Hmm.
create a barrier, or even block a textured pathway. Lots of great things to consider.
Yeah, definitely. Now, maybe what I'll do here is I'll just jump out really quickly and quickly spot on over to that other world where I have some advanced things that I can show you. And just because you see me doing these things or making things like with, say, redstone and command blocks, you don't have to use those techniques if you don't want to. But if you're already comfortable with them, then you might learn a new technique here, or you might already know it. There's usually lots of Minecraft experts around. So what I have here is a wheelchair lift. It's automated. It's censored. So as soon as I walk up to it, it lifts me up. As soon as I walk away, it detects I've moved away from it and it lifts back down, ready for the next person again. And it works both ways.
Okay, Dan, that is so cool.
All the doors are also censored. So if I walk up to them, they just automatically open for me and close when I walk away. And I have an elevator here. So again, it automatically opens up, and then I can push a button to go to the next floor.
All right, Dan, this build, not only is it incredible, but it's accessible, and you're taking into consider all those things we learned about.
And actually, while I'm thinking of it, there's another one I have that I'll show you just really quickly. And maybe I'll show you the secret of how I did it.
Woo! You're getting secrets from Dan today, everyone.
So this room, the lights are off, but as soon as I walk into it, they're censored. So it automatically turns them on for me. And as soon as I leave, it turns them off. So I find that's really helpful, particularly when I was working in schools. If I went into a room and I'd sometimes have to stumble around looking for the light switch, or they had a sensor, but it wasn't very well placed. So you'd have to walk through the room to activate the lighting, and you'd end up tripping over desks and, and dropping things. And it was always a bit, so if you have a sensor that sees you as soon as you walk into the room, I mean, it's game changing. I don't have to, put down what I'm carrying, or if somebody's using a wheelchair or a walker or a cane, they don't have to worry about, shuffling things around if they're also carrying books. It's all done for them. So I really like that kind of thing. So I'll show you how I actually did this. Let's turn the weather off here. And just go into world builder mode. And I'm going to knock out some of these tiles here so you can see what I've done to build this. So I've got a command block here. So you can give yourself a command block by typing in give at s, which is yourself, command block. If you haven't used command blocks before, this is a whole other universe, but it really does allow you to add a lot of functionality to your Minecraft builds. So there's my Minecraft command block. And you'll note that it's a different color, so we can actually come in here and we can change how that command block behaves. So I'll just click on this here. So it's a repeat block. So it's going to keep repeating what it's being told to do until it senses that you're not in the area. And it's always active. So it doesn't need a redstone signal going to it, like through a pressure plate or something like that. In this case, it's always active. And this is the command that's in here. That probably doesn't look like it makes much sense. So I'll just explain it here. So this is a test for command. So it's actually testing for at P, which is any player that walks into this specific space. There's a couple of ways of doing it. So this way looks at X, Y, and Z coordinates. So this is the starting point where it's looking from, and then it moves out this many spaces from that in 3 dimensions. So Y is up and down. So it's looking up and down 4 spaces in this cubic space. It goes out 12 one way, and it goes out 15 another. So it's got that cubic space. Or I could change this, and I could just, in these square brackets here, I could put R equals like 15. So it's looking for a radius of 15 around from a specific point or from where that block is placed, which is an easier way to do it. But a radius is circular, and I have a square room here. So that's why I've used this here.
So don't worry, students. If you're newer to Minecraft, Dan's taking it to a whole other level,
Yeah.
which is awesome. But he wanted to show you, 2 ways. You're welcome to build in the sandbox with the BuildAbility. If you're maybe a more advanced Minecraft user like Dan, or you want to aspire to be Dan, you're welcome to, blocks of grass and do your own design. But more of the story, we are building amazing accessibility solutions. Whether it's more space, maybe it's better seating, maybe it's textured walkways, sensory lights, all these things can just make the world a better place for everyone to enjoy.
Yeah, so this is connected to a comparator and then a repeater, and then the redstone line runs out. You can get the comparator and the redstone repeater and the redstone just from your regular inventory, and they're connected to redstone lamps. So as soon as I walk down there, those will light up. And actually, those doors that I showed you earlier are connected the same way. They're using that same single block to detect when I enter a specific area. With the doors, I usually don't use a cubic space. I get lazy and I just use that square bracket, radius equals 3. And as soon as you approach those doors, it opens. For the wheelchair lift, I needed to use that square area so that it would behave properly.
Dan, in the forum, we have an Aliana and Riley and Mohammed, and their question is, are these all your builds?
Yes, they are. This is actually, it started off as a demonstration build to show people what you could do in Minecraft. If we look under the floor here, knock out some of the wall, you can see how this works. Sticky pistons, but this is all. So again, there's that command block and different types of command blocks. So these ones are looking for redstone signals. So this is actually creating a redstone signal, which comes out and tells the pistons to activate by placing a redstone torch next to them. But yeah, these are all mine. It started out as a demonstration world, and I'm always learning new things. Like there's no end to what you can learn about redstone and command blocks. There's always something new I'm encountering. So when I learn something new, I come and build it in here right away, just so that I can go and revisit it if I need to, because I can't remember all of the syntax that I need for some of these commands all the time. So I'll just come back in, I'll knock down, or I've even got a museum in here that actually has examples of each single thing, or different combinations that I've made to make entirely new things, so that I can remember how I did it, so that if I'm doing a new build, I can go back and just copy it out and do it over again.
Dan, let's just say it's incredible. Is there one last accessibility feature you might want to show us, Dan, before we close off today?
Yeah, let's go back just quickly to the other build world here. So let's see if there's anything last minute I can add in here.
But you have shown us so many adjustments that we can make. Show us maybe one more accessibility barrier that we can shatter today.
Okay, so we need more Wi-Fi in this space. So I'm going to build my version of a Wi-Fi access point in Minecraft. And being an IT person, it is secured as well.
Good to know.
So there's my Wi-Fi access point. Could even add some doors here with some pressure plates.
And then the Wi-Fi is to allow, accessibility of information, to look things up, to translate menus. A lot of menus are even online through a QR code. So it's nice to have that Wi-Fi so that individuals can scan QR codes or learn more or look up different things.
We've got some automated doors there.
Incredible. Dan, you have shown us so many things and we are running out of time. Dan could just show you things all day. But thank you, Dan. Students, we want to encourage you to continue to work on your buildability and your solutions, whether it's in that sandbox, whether it's in a blocks of grass. We would love for you to continue with the building. Sorry we can't offer more build time today. But thank you again so much for joining, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks, Dan, for your incredible builds.
No problem. Thank you.